part of our program, which we have a very wonderful and special guest speaker today. I remember hearing some years ago that His Holiness Satsrup Maharaj, when he was once asked, when were you born? He said 1966 on 26 2nd Avenue. and ever since I heard that, I thought, wow, that's so profound how he felt that. So, if I'm not mistaken, His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj was also initiated here, but in 1968, in this very place. And there's a beautiful picture at the back, I'm sure some of you have seen, of devotees gathered in front of matchless gifts, which I think the last talk that Maharaj gave here, he was explaining about different devotees in that picture, and he told us that Srila Prabhupada called that picture the Angels of New York. So like that, all the devotees gathered there. And one of those angels is His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj, who is, we're very blessed and fortunate to have with us, one of the senior editors of Srila Prabhupada's books and editing Prabhupada's books from the very early days, taking so much responsibility, and author also in his own right. And we're very blessed that he's taking such a profound interest in matchless gifts in New York as a whole, spending so much time here, giving so much encouragement, so much of his wisdom to so many devotees, to all of us. So we'd like to welcome and invite His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj to come and please address us. His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Ki. Jai.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashchati Deshatane Vanchakolpatarubhyas Chakrapasindhopyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare My thanks and respects to all who've come, especially to my god brother and god sister Pancharatna Prabhu and Atita Guna Devi. Nice to have everyone's company. Let's see what the failing memory can remember today. We were hearing about just some little details that we, Jayadvaita Prabhu mentioned Prabhupada sitting at his desk upstairs. Actually, his desk was a yellow tin box, I guess. It seemed like it was a, like the boxes that are used for luggage, used as luggage, like a trunk, yeah. But it was small, like about this size and maybe that deep. a yellow tin box. So Prabhupada was using that as a desk. He was sitting on a, what would you say, kind of like a bedspread, like a little cover. I guess it was a blanket. But
Little louder, please.
yeah, okay. Maybe you can give me some more volume. Hare Krishna. So he had like a little gray, not little, but, sort of a gray cover with little elephants on it. And that was his sitting place upstairs. For those who've not been, there's his main, there was the room that he would sit in, and then there was an outside room. And off, as you walk in, I think on the left, there's like a kitchen area, not a kitchen, but a kitchen area. And I don't think there was much more than that. And so Prabhupada would sit in that small room and do everything there. Well, I remember, let's see, let's get some things in direction here. I think when I joined, I'd already joined 2 months before Prabhupada, before I met Prabhupada. Prabhupada came here to New York, to 2nd Avenue. Now, he came, let's get some dates here if we can. I hate scrolling, but let's do this. Okay. So Prabhupada came in 1968 in the summer, and as I mentioned, I'd already joined 2 months earlier, so then Prabhupada came. But his arrival was late because of the traffic. He arrived quite a bit later than expected, which of course got everybody, everybody's more revved up to receive him. And then when Prabhupada came, he talked about the delay and quoted the verse, Maya Sukhaya Paramudvato Vimudhan, a verse from 7th canto spoken by Prahlad Maharaj, where Prahlad Maharaj says they've created Prabhupada called it a humbug civilization. Param means burdensome, a heavy, a humbug civilization with false happiness. Maya, Sukha means happiness, and Maya means illusory. So the materialists have created a civilization or a city with illusory happiness. It's not the actual thing, but the appearance of happiness. And that too, troublesome, burdensome. You get so many cars, you have to sit in the traffic all the time, and that makes life easier. So all of these things were making life easier, but they've made life more complicated, more burdensome. So Prabhupada quoted that. Good, there's a date. I was initiated here, as you mentioned. The date was April 28th, 1968. I'm terrible for dates. I always forget them. But when I was initiated, there were 4 devotees initiated. Vamadev Prabhu, who's headed up the renovation here, and one boy, Michael O'Leary, who became Madhavendra Das, another Jay Mayo, who became, what did he become? something else, and me. And there were also 2 marriages performed. Balai Dasi and her husband Advaita were married, and Hansadutta and Himavati were already married, but there was, they took part in the ceremony also so that they could be married by Prabhupada. So I always forget dates, but a girl always remembers the day she was married. So, according to Balai Dasi, it was April 28th, 1960. Jayadvaita, that was the 4th, that was Jay Mayo. Did I tell the story of Jayadvaita before? Of the 4 of us, I'm still hanging on, and Vamadev Prabhu is still here. Madhavendra was a young boy, like a high school boy, and his family held on to him. It was difficult for him to escape from his family, his family. Jayadvaita was an interesting case. He was a sort of big fellow, not huge, but I mean, Brahmananda was here and everyone was small in comparison. But, was a little stocky, with a broad Brooklyn accent. And he was attending, in fact, Brooklyn College. So he'd wear a white shirt and pants and a beadback. And he was taking the opportunity to, he was studying, I guess, sociology of religion. And so, along with practicing Krishna consciousness, he was attending college. What do they call it? Observer participant, right? So he was an observer participant. He was writing up his experiences and at the same time participating. So he was coming regularly to the programs. And then he got initiated, and that's the last we saw of him. Because that completed his research. Put the little cherry on top, he got initiated, and that was it. So he had, it's so rare to get the association of a pure devotee of Krishna, and he got it, and that's what he did with it. He completed his paper, whatever it was, and we trust that he got his degree, and that's what he got out of the association of Srila Prabhupada. So the Prabhupada makes the point that for Krishna consciousness, the speaker must be bona fide and the hearer must be bona fide. So in this case, the speaker was bona fide, but the hearer was actually duplicitous. He wasn't truly interested in pursuing the path of Prabhupada's teachings, but it appears he was more interested in the academic achievement, and his involvement in Krishna consciousness was only instrumental to that. In one sense, he was fortunate. He got the association of devotees. He took prasadam, chanted Hare Krishna. But he could have gotten so much more, and instead he got so much less. That's Jayadvaita. Some memories that I've written down. One thing I remember from my early days is that Prabhupada was conspicuously effulgent. That's one of the qualities of a devotee, is naturally effulgent, and Srila Prabhupada really was. Someone told the story that Prabhupada was going by and someone said, "That man is glowing," and he was visibly effulgent here at 26 Second Avenue. Prabhupada had gone to India, so he came back, but he'd gone to India because of his health. He'd had heart attack here. That story is told in Prabhupada Jayadvaita. And his personal assistants at that time were Govindasi, who's still with us. And as she points out, Prabhupada always pronounced her name Govindasi. It was never Govinda Dasi, it was always Govindasi, 4 syllables. So Govindasi was here, and her husband was Gaur Sundar Das, and who passed away maybe a year or so ago in Alachua. And yes. And Govindasi was always very concerned with Prabhupada's health, attentive to his health. So she'd be cooking for Prabhupada, but everything would be restricted because of his health. She and someone else were cooking, and Prabhupada called them the Starvation Committee. Starvation Committee. I remember that they used to have like squares, cardboard squares, one red and one green, which they would put in Prabhupada's window. So when he was taking rest, it would be red. Otherwise, it could be green. And I remember one time Govindasi asked Prabhupada here in this storefront, could you tell us about the cowherd boys? Because I think Prabhupada had said something about Krishna and the cowherd boys to Govinda Dasi. Talked about that topic a little. So he was pleased with the question, and he told something about that. A shipment had arrived in advance of Srila Prabhupada's arrival, as I remember. Yes, it was in advance because it was kept here. A crate from India, which had mridungas, kartals, and deities. It had deities of Radha Krishna, one set of deities, or perhaps there were more. But I remember one, and kartals, mridungas. The deities are now installed in ISKCON Brooklyn. They're the first Radha Krishna deities in ISKCON. Jagannath was here in the temple room, and Radha Krishna came. And when Radha Krishna came, then Prabhupada, in fact, that was the same day they were installed. It was that same date. Bala and Dvaita were married. I was initiated, and Radha and Krishna were installed. So you can see the difference between the Lord and the living entity, where initiated and he's installed. So and Himavati was a good seamstress and good in those things. She made outfits for the deities and wigs for the deities. I think it was what we call an all-nighter. It was one of those urgent things. And Prabhupada said, and then the initiation was held like right around where you are. There was a fire made, and Prabhupada was sitting just no kurta, but uttariya, top cloth, and yes, and he chanted all the. He did everything himself. Chanted all the mantras, chanted on the beads, and the initiation ceremonies. Prabhupada would chant on all the beads. There was no like pre-chanted beads. He would chant on however many beads there were, and we would sit and chant with Prabhupada while he chanted on the beads. And he would, yes. And the storefront, of course, would fill up with smoke, but Prabhupada was happy with that. Gorsinder tied the beads around my neck, and Prabhupada said, "Your name is Jairam." And I didn't know quite what to make of that, because there was already a devotee here named Jairam. He's still, we sometimes still see him. He's living in New Jersey, near Tuaco. So, your name is Jairam. And Gorsinder said to Srila Prabhupada, "Swamiji, there's already a Jairam." He said, "Oh, then your name is Jayadvaita." That actually was, there's a thread there that I was always sort of, not always, you'd see a contradiction there. The spiritual master is supposed to be perfect. He's supposed to know everything. Charjavan Purusho Veda, one who has a bona fide spiritual master, is supposed to know everything. Certainly Prabhupada is supposed to know everything. And he didn't know that there was already a Jairam. And he's ready to give me that name. So what are we supposed to think about that? And there were, over the years, lots of things that you could point to where Prabhupada seems not to know something. He'd forget a verse. What is that verse? Or he'd quote the verse, a little in his own way. Or this or that. So how is the spiritual master perfect? To give another example, Asudutta Prabhu told this story that when he first came to the storefront, he saw Prabhupada sitting on the dais, and he looked, like Lord Buddha, something very impressive, a Hindu sage. And he was chanting, and quite the spiritual scene. And then Prabhupada ended the kirtan, took out the book and put it before him, and put on his glasses. And Hansatuda was thinking, wait a second, he's a Swami. Why does he need glasses? Right, a Swami shouldn't need glasses. So this kind of thinking is there, that we measure the spiritual master according to our, or the devotee according to our standards. And we say, why should he need glasses? Why doesn't he remember the verse? Why did he forget that there's already a Jairam? And so on. And many years later, I got the opportunity to ask Srila Prabhupada about that. We were in Mayapur. Yeah, we were in Mayapur. There was a morning walk. At that time, I was still a brahmachari. And there were, on the walks, typically sannyasis, GBC men, the heavies, and maybe Vishaka, a photographer. So all the heavies are there with their dandas and walking. By that time, I was a little bit of, I'd been around for quite several years, so I had some seniority, so I was on the walk. And so I asked Srila Prabhupada that Srila Prabhupada, sometimes from the material point of view, we see that the spiritual master makes mistakes. And Prabhupada said that is material point of view. And then I said, well, even sometimes in spiritual things, we see that he may forget a verse, or he may quote it in a different way. That was pushing things, And Prabhupada said that that's material point of view. He said the spiritual master is not a magician. The spiritual master is not a magician. We have to see how he's preaching Krishna consciousness. That's the real the real thing. That is his perfection. So I said, so it's our vision that's imperfect in Prabhupada. Something like that, and Prabhupada confirmed that was so. That conversation has been recorded, and over the years devotees have sometimes found that to be a useful exchange. In fact, somebody asked Prabhupada, the conversation continued. Satsrup Maharaj was on that walk, and I don't think it was he, but someone asked Prabhupada about, there's a verse in first canto where Shukadev, Sutta Goswami glorifies Shukadev Goswami by saying that he's like the super soul that can enter the heart of everyone and understand everything. So someone brought up that verse, for Prabhupada to comment on, and Prabhupada didn't bite the bait. He didn't choose to discuss it, and one could almost say he, just dismissed it. Wasn't going to talk about that. He didn't say yes. I know what's in everyone's heart because I'm as good as the super soul or anything. He just didn't comment on it. And he had the opportunity, but declined. Anyway, that conversation was there, worth reading sometime, because Prabhupada talked. I'm just giving the sketch, but Prabhupada said more. And then after the walk, all my godbrothers got on my case, as they say. How could you ask Prabhupada, say those things to Prabhupada, and it was insulting, and it was offensive, and who do you think you are? And it really got on me. So then that's Prabhupada's morning walk. After the morning walk, he gives the class in the temple. After the class, he goes up to his room and has breakfast. So after the class, around his breakfast time, I went upstairs, which is in the Lotus building, which is still the Lotus building. And I offered obeisances to Prabhupada, and I said, Srila Prabhupada, that question I asked this morning, and Prabhupada said, what is that? So I, restated the question. I said, Srila Prabhupada, was that question offensive? And Prabhupada said, not offensive, just ignorant. So I was happy. It's very dangerous to be offensive, but to be ignorant is expected. There was also a harmonium in that shipment. So Prabhupada he wanted to play. So he had Gursinder and I play on kartals while he played with the harmonium. And he was very happy about that. Happy that the harmonium had come, that now there's kartals and dangas, there's more. Yes. Prabhupada had a tape recorder down here. It was like right around here. And a Kai tape recorder, big, 7-inch reels, 5-inch reels, whatever they were, big reel-to-reel tape recorder. And I remember it was stolen. And Prabhupada said, therefore I never allowed it to be kept downstairs. And as Prabhupada said, he was a Calcutta boy. He knew about these things. He would keep it carefully, but it was stolen. There was a morning walk I went on. I don't seem to remember that I went on many morning walks with Prabhupada. They were hard to get on even back then. But I got to go at least on one. And I remember Prabhupada mostly just chanted japa that particular walk. Or didn't talk about a lot of things. But I asked one question. Sakalaneha mahata yoga nashta parantapa. That, well, over time the disciplic succession was lost. So I asked Prabhupada how is it that it was lost if Vyasadeva was still there? Because he's, Krishna Brahma Narada Vyas, if Vyas is still there, how was the knowledge lost? And Prabhupada said lost means that it was not generally known, therefore lost. There was, as we came down this second street, there was a church, maybe it's still there, I don't remember. The church is still there, on the opposite side of the street. And there was a sign on the church, bingo. And Prabhupada said, what is this bango? And I said, well, Srila Prabhupada, it's a kind of game. There's the kind of gambling. And Prabhupada said, they allow? I said, well, they encourage Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada shook his head. Intoxication, meat eating, gambling. It was common. I don't know if I've mentioned this. So many things I don't remember whether I mentioned them here before. But devotees would play the kartals. They would outrace Srila Prabhupada on the kartals. Prabhupada would start the kirtan very slow. And he would chant very slowly, the kirtan, in the beginning. So he would be playing his kartals. And the devotees would be, you can hear it on some of the old tapes that they're just out racing him. And on some of the tape you'll hear Prabhupada. And some got it and some didn't. I think it's been mentioned many times that in the kirtans, in the programs, that as mentioned Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, there was a simple program, kirtan, Prabhupada would speak, then there'd be kirtan again, there would always be kirtan. Srila Jiva Goswami says that every function should begin and end with kirtan. And Prabhupada always did that. He'd start with kirtan and end with kirtan. And it was my experience also that he would speak philosophy and raise so many thoughts, questions, and so on. And the second kirtan would practically, cement the understandings that you would hope to get, or that you might have gotten in the talk. Your superficial doubts would disappear, and what you'd understood would be become more fixed because of that kirtan. The kirtan, Prabhupada explains, comes directly from the spiritual platform, transcending the what did Prabhupada said, sensual, mental, and intellectual platforms. So on the mental platform, well, I don't know, we have so many doubts and so many confusions and so many, but if this, why that, and so on. And intellectual, what's the word, work to try to fit everything together. But the kirtan itself was coming from the spiritual platform, and so it sort of washed away so many so many doubts, so many questions, so many. Prabhupada called it, he agreed that we practiced brainwashing. He said your brain is dirty, so it needs to be washed. But it didn't mean that we became, lost our intellectual capacity, but things simply became clearer because of the chanting. Because of the chanting. One's mind would become more clear. When our mind is clear, we can see things clearly. And when our mind is dusty, dirty, dull, then everything's hard to see. My glasses are dirty, then I don't see things very clearly. So they need to be washed, they need to be cleansed. And then we see nicely. So Prabhupada always ended with a second kirtan, and then there'd always be prasadam. It was absolute. There had to be prasadam. What is that? Mantrahina mashrishtan, vidihina mashrishtan, mantrahina madakshana. Any yajna that's performed in which there's no standard rules followed, and in which there's no proper mantras chanted, in which the priests are not given some gift, and in which there's no distribution of prasadam, that's a yajna in ignorance. So Prabhupada would always have some prasadam. Usually it would be a little fruit, some apples, some, the usual grocery store fruit. And Prabhupada would take a little and have it distributed. There had to be prasadam. And one time I remember Prabhupada took a little piece of apple and he said, this apple is Krishna's mercy on your country. This apple is Krishna's mercy on your country. In our country we have got mango. Among my early engagements here, one was recording Prabhupada's lectures. We had a reel-to-reel Wallensack recorder that was sort of a good tape recording machine back then. It was dimensions. It was probably about the size of this laptop and about this big. That's what it took to be a tape recorder back then. So I would record some of Prabhupada's lectures. That was one of my engagements. And another engagement, there was a box, like a file box, the little file box. What do they call it?
Like you put recipes in? Like you used to put recipes in?
I don't know. I'm not a big recipe collector. But the kind that you see in Indian offices where they're keeping, it's yay thick and 8.5 by 11. So there was like a box like that, which had all the letters that devotees had received here, and maybe some others, because the letters were kept as kind of common property. The letters would come, and if a letter came, everybody was like, woo, woo, woo. And most often they would come to Brahmananda. He was the president. Often they'd be addressed to Brahmananda. There would be letters to him, personal directions from Srila Prabhupada. And then he would also write to other devotees who'd written to him with questions and so on. So the letters were generally kept in that file box. And so I invented the engagement for myself of putting letters in chronological order, because they were all jumbled. but of course my real intention was to read them all. And they were wonderful, so educational, reading Prabhupada's letters. And I think most of those letters have been preserved, and they're in the database, they're in the archives. I'm sure some have been lost, but especially from those days, I think they were kept. I remember sometimes upstairs going into Prabhupada's closets for something. In his sitting room there was a closet, and I remember opening it one time, and it had, what I remember, there was a big guttery, what's a guttery? Bundle of saffron cloth. You take the saffron cloth and you tie the opposite ends together, and then the other opposite ends together, and you've got a bundle. And they were all manuscripts of Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam, I think, second canto, whatever there was. And there were some old typewriters there too, like the old Underwood or Remington typewriters, the ones with keys that traveled about this far. And you could type fast on them, but they were really old. And I don't remember how well those two typewriters, two or three, if there was a typewriter, Prabhupada held on to it. And I don't remember how well they worked, but they were there, typewriters and these bundles of manuscripts. Most important work. Those were the days before the Gargamuni found the dictaphone. And Prabhupada was typing everything with 2 fingers. And and you see the early manuscripts, that's what they are, they're his own typing. Early chapters of Bhagavad Gita, early Bhagavatam, they're Prabhupada's own typing. And then it switches. Gargamuni finds that dictaphone is a trademark, but it was a Grundig recording device. And Gargamuni, Prabhu has told that story, so I won't repeat it, how he acquired that for Prabhupada. I remember also there was another closet, not in Prabhupada's room, but facing perpendicular, I think, from Prabhupada's room. And there Prabhupada had various things. He had a lota, some small neck beads in a little case, and some atrifala. Not powder, but the branches and the plant, raw plant, Ayurvedic medicine. Also in the first closet there were recordings that had been made earlier of Prabhupada speaking on different topics, I remember. And Prabhupada had labeled them Evam Pravartitam Chakram, and prayers by Queen Kunti, prayers by Shukadev Goswami. And Prabhupada was keeping those. I think that was another engagement I had. I copied all those tapes, reel to reel, patch cords and all of that. In Prabhupada's yellow tin suitcase, I think it was in there, the one that became his desk, he also had a little container for Eaton's ink eradicator. And what mattered was that it was about this big, round like this, and Prabhupada was keeping pennies inside. If he would find some pennies or whatever. that was all Krishna's property. And so he had this ink eradicator case with coins inside. And especially in those days, every coin counted. First of all, they were worth a little more than they are today. But you can get a Coca-Cola for 10 cents. But apart from that, every penny was precious. I remember the first time, one of the early times I learned about Srila Prabhupada, there was an article published. Everyone knows the article that was published in the East Village Other, but there was a magazine called Evergreen Review, which was published by Grove Press, which was sort of an alternative grunge publisher at the time, sort of leftist, porno, pseudo-intellectual. You know them? Yeah. William Burroughs and that kind of stuff. And they had a magazine, a sort of pseudo-literary, low. It was literary, but it was low literature. But if somebody wrote an article, they had visited here, and they had an article about Prabhupada and the ashram. And in that article, it mentioned that there was a professor here, and he asked Prabhupada for money for stamps to send a letter, and Prabhupada quizzed him, like a 5-cent stamp, why he needed it. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness. And my impression was that this was real. This is what a spiritual master is. He's serious. He disciplines the disciple. You have no freedom. And even to get a postage stamp, you have to struggle. So, on another occasion, it wasn't mentioned there, but someone asked, Prabhupada was the treasurer, so for any expenditure that was needed, they had to go to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada would sometimes say, "Oh, you shouldn't ask the spiritual master for money." Anyway, my impression from reading the article was that things here were very austere and very strict, but authentic. That was the impression I got, that it was authentic but very strict, very austere. So I was impressed, and I thought I'd like to find something like this. Not this, but something like this, something that would be a little easier. But then, of course, when I got here, it was sweet. Yes, Prabhupada, different questions. There was, we used to do the sort of forerunner of Arti. I forget what time of day we would do it. There was no Mangal Arti here at 26 2nd Avenue, ever, that I remember. There'd be the kirtan in class around 7 o'clock or something like that in the morning, and that's when that would be the start of things. But sometime during the morning or whenever there was a ceremony, and Jadurani has mentioned it in her memoir, and we called it bells, because you rang a little bell and offered some incense. And we did it. And so while Prabhupada was here, I remember asking Prabhupada, what's the meaning of bells? Prabhupada said, bells? He said, bells they have in every religion. That was our name for it, bells, this ceremony. But Prabhupada had no such reference. ceremony was called bells. Yeah, never really. I remember I asked Srila Prabhupada a question to the effect that if the disciple does something worthy, how does the spiritual master know? And in essence, the question was, how do you get your brownie points? And Prabhupada didn't, I don't think, got into well, Prabhupada just said, everyone will know. He said, face is the index of mind. Face is the index of mind, so everyone will know. How long do I go till? It's about now? Should I take a question or two? Okay, is there a question or two? Not sure.
So when you look around here, do you feel transported? Do you feel like this was 26th Second Avenue in 1968, or?
Not exactly. Yeah, like just every time I walk in, I go into trance, and everything goes back to. But no, that doesn't really happen. One thing is, it doesn't smell the same. You know, we had all those hippies from back in 1968. And,
You have to recreate the smell. The authentic.
I don't think so.
I do, every time I enter Prabhupada's room in Mayapur, and I take a whiff, it does transport me. But that's a good smell.
Yeah.
Smell of incense and certain kinds of flowers and so on.
There's a specialness. You know, I don't. You do come here, and it's not like visiting an office on Park Avenue. It's 26 Second Avenue, as Satsrup Maharaj mentioned. You know, such a special place. So even though our consciousness may not be the same, and probably good that it's not the same, we want it to be the same, but there's an incredible specialness to 26 Second Avenue. This is where Prabhupada sat. This is where all these pastimes took place, where so many devotees met Srila Prabhupada and served Srila Prabhupada, where ISKCON was. They held a meeting and incorporated the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, where Prabhupada wrote night after night, where he cooked, where he, served the devotees. So many things went on here at 26 Second Avenue. So there's really, there's no place like it in the three worlds. This place where Prabhupada came. And you know the story, Mukunda Maharaj tells the story. Prabhupada was living on the Bowery, and he came here, and Allen Ginsberg wrote in a foreword to the first abridged Bhagavad Gita as it is, what compassion to choose to tend to the Lower East Side. And Prabhupada chose to come here. The actual story is after that boy went crazy in the loft and Prabhupada had nowhere to go, he asked Mukunda Maharaj to find some place in a respectable neighborhood. Here you are. And, well, now it's a very respectable neighborhood, but back then it was different. But it's so many, the whole atmosphere of the Lower East Side was very different. The influx of young, disoriented, displaced young people from good families would come looking for something different, a different way of life. We dropped out of families that schools and jobs and what have you. Not many jobs, more schools and home. And they're wandering around. A lot of them intoxicated. All of them probably intoxicated and confused. And Prabhupada's here teaching the Mahamantra and uncompromising in his presentation of what human life is and what human life is for and how one should, what disciplines one should follow, uncompromising. So all of that and more is happened and here at 26 2nd Avenue. So it's a special place, and we can think deeply. That devotees come from Europe, from other places, and they come here and they go deep into thought of what Prabhupada accomplished here. I come every few weeks. I give a talk, and it's in one sense, easy. It costs you, if you're over 65, it costs you $1.50 on the subway to come here. But it's only by good fortune that anyone can come to this very special place and be reminded of the glorious days, not only happy days, but glorious days when Prabhupada just patiently did whatever he could to teach Krishna consciousness to the young people that Krishna sent him here. I should stop.
I want you to keep going, Mars, but usually we finish, but I'd love for you to keep going.
Usually we stop, but we'd love to keep going.
Yeah.
So what are you telling me I should do?
I should probably stop now.
Okay, thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai, Gaur Premanande Hare Krishna.
His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami ki
Jai.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you so much, Marge, for sharing all those deep insights and transporting us. I actually had about 10 questions to ask, but maybe I can get those to another time. So thank you, everyone, for being here. So now we'll have a short kirtan. If there's anyone who would like to lead kirtan, then you're welcome. We can engage someone else in doing that. And then we'll serve prasadam. And so we'll have just a short kirtan. So, any volunteers for kirtan? Yes? Okay. Pancharatna Prabhu, would you like to play mridanga, kartals? And if you like, we can have standing kirtan. Everyone can stretch their legs a little bit. Kartals, mridanga.
Namo Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanandi
Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste
Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivadikaya Sudhera Sutta Jandigo Swami Sri Bhakti Rasa Swami Sri Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivadikaya Sudhera Sutta Shishima Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Shri Prabhupada Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrindi Ki Jai Iskan Founder Acharya Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Acharya Shri Harirasa Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Pura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kundi Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Jai. Gangamai Ki Jai, Gangamai Ki Jai, Sri Radhan Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Glories to the soul. Glories to the soul. Shri Guru.
Okay, so Hare Krishna everyone, that concludes our evening. We're going to be serving prasad in the back area there, and everyone is please encouraged to take. So as you can see, we've done a lot to restore 26 2nd Avenue. So anyone, we still have campaigns going on. This was just phase 1. There's still other things to do. So if anyone is interested and would like to help make a contribution towards the efforts and works here, you're most welcome. You can speak to both Mark Wu, our president. He's here. There's also a little bit of merchandise left at the back if anyone's interested. If anyone would like to make a donation, you're most welcome. It's not required, but it's an offer that you can refuse. Thank you very much, everyone. Hare Krishna. As always, Jayadvaita Swami Ki Jai. Prabhupada Ki Jai.